I try to teach people that one of the most important things that they can do for themselves is reframe whatever story they have about their life, because the story is what holds the meaning and the beliefs. You change your story, so much else changes, but also changing the energy that you put behind it. So a lot of people will talk about their past, and then they frame themselves as the victim of it, and then they have a negative emotion behind it, and that emotion is really anchoring it into all of these energy centers because you feel it. Your heart, most people don't realize this, has a brain of 44,000 neurons that generates the largest electromagnetic field in the body. Electrically, it's 40 to 60 times stronger than your brain, but magnetically up to 100 times stronger than your brain. So a person cannot think, speak, or act differently until they feel differently.
Hey there, welcome back to Good for the Hive, the podcast where I get to speak to some inspiring guests to share their life lessons and take a look at the question, what is a good life? This week's guest, Ashley Brothers, is a motivational speaker, an international life coach, and a teacher of shamanic healing. We talk all about how you can reframe your own story to reframe your life, how your dreams die while you're living in your own comfort zone, and a practice that Ashley's picked up called HeartMath, which has really turned her life around and had a huge impact on the way that she lives. If you enjoy the episode, please do give it a like and share, and if you're new around here, do subscribe. The more likes and subs that we get on the channel really help us to grow and continue to attract inspiring guests just like Ashley. Let's jump into the episode. Ashley Brothers, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Good stuff. I've got so many questions to ask you. I've literally last week I did my first Reiki session, and I really want to hear your thoughts on Reiki as a topic. But let's start where we always start and ask you, what is a good life to you?
I want to say a good life is, where your needs are met. Because if you are lacking in something like your physical health, your mental health, or your finances, friendships, or whatever, you're going to feel it. It's going to come up in some way that undermines your quality of life and undermines your mood, your performance, and what have you. So having basic needs being met, and then more. And I don't necessarily mean like, always staying inside a comfort zone, but you have quality of health, mental and physical health. You have a roof over your head. You have surroundings that are at least beautiful or aesthetic, so that your mind and your body can just be in a place of relaxation. You have enough finances to feel more free. I mean, if you need to travel or do something on a whim, you don't feel like this scarcity mindset. And you also have people around you that are supportive and not trying to hammer you into whatever mold makes them comfortable. They just accept you for who you are. But also, too, I feel like a person has to have a good relationship with themselves and something that they cannot see. Because if they don't like themselves, they will make themselves miserable. They will say things to themselves that's abusive or neglectful. They will undermine their own, goals or dreams. They'll self-sabotage themselves if they don't have a good relationship with themselves. And they will unconsciously or subconsciously create wounding events, circumstances, and relationships to validate whatever negative beliefs they may hold about their own worth or value. And then having at least a amicable relationship with the universe. Because if you look at the world as something that's unsafe, something that's toxic, you will find evidence of it anywhere. Sort of like the double slit experiment, where attention goes, energy flows. And so wherever you put your attention or awareness is what you're going to experience, regardless if it's true or not. Because these filters that we have on things, whether it's good or bad, positive or negative, is going to determine basically your quality of life. So attitude is going to be a big one. your attitude, your mindset, your habits, all of these things need to be in alignment with the version of yourself you want to be. If you want to be this one person, but you're doing the opposite, you're going to feel cruddy about yourself. You're going to feel cruddy about your life. And again, if you have a negative viewpoint of the world, you're going to feel like a victim of it. So I know I sort of like went around the bend there with everything, but
so much to pick up on there. So you talk a lot in your literature and your other spaces about trauma, neglect, and other things people pick up presumably along their journey to come to wherever they come into contact with yourself.
yeah.
How important do you think it is to isolate and understand whatever trauma or neglect or negative things that have happened to that person to help them move past it and get on to the next stage?
I think a lot of people spend too much time over analyzing their trauma. I have clients that will spend 20, 30 years in therapy and they're just as messed up as they always were because all they do is talk about it. And they found through research, like studying the heart, for instance, that talking about trauma and having the emotions that come up about it reinforces it.
It's
You
like
are
reliving it. You're getting hit by
yes,
the same arrow over and over and over again.
yes. And so part of it is like understanding it. I mean, understanding people will mentally, they know their trauma. They haven't gotten past it though. And so it's not necessarily just about understanding, it's about transmuting and transforming it to neutral or better. Because if you are constantly reliving that, you're going to see it everywhere. And so people who talk about bad things, gossip or talk negatively, they're going to find it because they're reinforcing that pathway. But if you can come into a place where you can reframe it, if you're going to talk about trauma, you better learn to reframe it. Not you, but a person better learn to reframe it. Meaning, what was my role in it, if any?
Mm-hmm.
What, how did it serve me? Because a lot of people are like, oh, that horrible, rape, abuse, trauma, there's no way it served me. But if a person comes into a place of wisdom where they no longer feel a victim of it, but they look at it from the eyes of a neutral observer, they can see that they may have learned something that benefited them later in life if they allowed it. So like my trauma, I had decided that I wanted to learn as many healing modalities as possible from around the world to help as many people as I could, because I did not feel like the Western medicine model worked. Like a lot of times they'll give you like things like pills, but they don't do blood tests first to decide, are you low in serotonin or dopamine or any of these, hormones, or even are you high in cortisol? So they don't know before they give you something what you're low in or high in. And, and so they don't even know if that's the problem. Most times it's going to be your nervous system that's out of whack, and none of those drugs do anything for changing your physiological response to stress. And so I try to teach people that one of the most important things that they can do for themselves is reframe whatever story they have about their life, because the story is what holds the meaning and the beliefs. You change your story, so much else changes. But also changing the energy that you put behind it. So a lot of people will talk about their past, and then they frame themselves as the victim of it, and then they have a negative emotion behind it, and that emotion is really anchoring it into all of these energy centers because you feel it. Your heart, most people don't realize this, has a brain of 44,000 neurons that generates the largest electromagnetic field in the body. Electrically, it's 40 to 60 times stronger than your brain, but magnetically up to 100 times stronger than your brain. So a person cannot think, speak, or act differently until they feel differently. And so part of this is trying to get people learning how to hack their own system, how to strengthen their nervous system so that they're at a place of neutral or better, because that neutrality stops that adrenaline and cortisol that keeps that loop open of the fight, flight, or freeze, or that wounded mindset. and puts the person back into homeostasis where the mind and body can heal itself. That neutrality is almost like alpha theta brainwave frequencies that meditators use or that neurofeedback specialists use to treat people for depression, anxiety, and addiction. So I really feel like people, they need to change their story, reframe it to how it served them, and to change the energy or frequency in their body to neutral or better, so that it will automatically change the brain without them having to figure it out. Because your heart will change your brain and somebody else's, because that's how strong your field is. Sorry, that was a long. Whoopsies.
I'm making so many notes. I'm just like, I've got to come back to all these points. So one of my first questions is, with so many modalities behind you that you could explore to, let's say, cure someone, probably the wrong word, but to help someone, to support someone, do you get to know the person and then you decide together which route to go down? Or do you have a set, well, this works well just to explore and get you close to neutral, and then these things can support afterwards? Or how do you do that when you've explored so many different cultures, so many different modalities and all the rest of it? How do you start your therapy?
I like to talk to people because I want to. When I'm working with people, I'm sort of like my body is like an instrument. I'm going to pick up when they speak to me, I get images in my head. Sometimes they are symbolic and I have to interpret that image. Sometimes they're quite literal. Sometimes I see it like an MRI screen where I'll see illnesses or blockages in either their physical body or their energetic body. I will get messages in my head about if this is an ordinary reality problem or a spiritual problem, meaning maybe there's an entity or something attached to them, or if this is a mindset, or whether somebody had done this to them or they have done it to themselves. And I will also see, is this for me? Do I have enough energy, life force, or vitality to eclipse this? Because sometimes people will come in with something that is so strong that it actually will make me throw up. And so that's not useful for either of us, for me to be that person. And I'll know just by talking to them on the phone if I can work with that
Really?
person. Yeah. And because I have all these different modalities, my guides or higher self will scroll through everything in my basically Rolodex in my brain about, is this a medical issue that needs to be treated in an ordinary way? Do they have to make changes in their habits? Do they have to change their toxic relationships? Do they have to change their mindset or their attitude or their habits? Or do they need a specific therapy? And it will scroll through all these different therapies that aren't even mine. And it will be like, talk to this person or find somebody who does this type of modality. So I'm scanning from all these different like the multidimensional self, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, habitually, whatever, to see where the root is and what it needs to happen in ordinary, non-ordinary reality to resolve it.
So it starts as like a mediumship
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
and then it goes where it needs to go after that. Do you find yourself more often than not going down a certain route, or it's literally each person's a snowflake and it could be completely different?
I find that most people have a nervous system issue. They don't know how to self-regulate. People who are stuck in fight, flight, or freeze or a trauma response, if they are still in it 20 years later, there's a nervous system issue. A lot of people will also have bad speech habits, meaning they say negative things to themselves and others. There's always a belief system that's in there, that they reinforce through their speech and through their habits. There's also not always, but oftentimes there are people around them that are keeping them stuck, meaning A lot of people don't realize that the power of proximity. They have found through studies, if you have a high vibrational person around a low vibrational person, and this low vibrational person is more dominant in their energy field, this person will lower in mood, energy, and performance by a minimum of 30%. It's like, so you are what you eat, you are who you hang with. And so if you're around toxic people with bad attitudes that constantly complain or have bad habits, you will sync up with them like a metronome.
I've seen that, like you're the average of your 5 best friends or something like
Yes.
that. That the people that you hang around with, you do gravitate to their feelings, their beliefs, their
Yeah.
reactions to things. Is that a tribal thing? Do you think that goes back to it's safer for humans to resonate with the people around them because that gives you numbers, that gives you safety? Is it that sort of thing going on?
There is that, but it's some cases it's just straight up quantum physics, quantum entanglement. When you are in their energy field, your heart extends out several feet. In some cases, it can extend across the world when you put your attention on that person. Remember, where attention goes, energy flows. Wherever you look for that electron, there it is. And so if you guys are around each other, these heart fields sync up. Because remember, your heart is electrically 40 to 60 times stronger than your brain, or 100 times in magnetism. So like your heart field goes out several feet, your brain only goes out like this. You know what I mean? So for you guys, meters in your country, you know, so
Thank
yeah.
you. Yeah, brilliant.
So it only goes out, the brain only goes out a few centimeters. So if you're in somebody's heart field and they have a negative attitude, negative feeling, it's going to eclipse you. It's going to, you know, unless you have a really strong field that can offset it. And if you do, you might actually find that those people leave your life. The stronger your field is, that's more dominant, the more you will attract the people that match your vibration, for better or worse.
So lesson 1 in how to lead a good life is get better friends.
Yes. And people too, they don't realize mirror neurons. And so you can talk about tribal stuff. Yes, the people who have gone through abuse, trauma, neglect, a lot of them tend to be empaths, and they will do a lot of people pleasing to stay emotionally safe. And they will try to manipulate their environment, maybe not intentionally, but unintentionally, to get that person to like them, to approve of them, to accept them, what have you. And so they become more like that other person for approval. But just straight up mirror neurons, the reason why empaths pick up so many other people's emotions and thoughts is because you have these neural pathways in your body that are syncing up to somebody else. So even if you don't want to, you're going to start to become like them. You know what I mean? Despite your best intentions. So yeah, have better friends.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
And number 2 that I picked up on there, it goes back to some of the Stoical teachings and things that I've been reading, is about don't catch yourself gossiping even to yourself. So
Yeah.
don't catch yourself putting people down even in your own head. Don't worry about that. It's more of a worry about what you can control and what's in your control rather than everyone else. And it's so easy to fall into the trap of gossiping. How important do you think it is for not only the positive mindset talk to yourself, but equally when you're thinking about those around you as well? How important is that?
Sort of like that where attention goes, energy flows thing, you know. The law of correspondence, as above, it means here, so below. What you feel, what you think becomes what you feel, or vice versa. And then as within, so without. So what you think is what you feel. What you're thinking and feeling becomes your reality outside. So you are programming the universe to show you evidence of what you just said to yourself or about somebody else. So if you are saying terrible things about yourself, you will get evidence of it. If you say terrible things about other people, you will not only get evidence of it, but you are basically pooping in your own pond here. You are lowering your vibration, your energy, and your mood and performance with every negative thing. And if a person goes, well, it's the truth, you just bought into a reality and solidified it by saying that. Because truth, it changes on a dime. There are infinite possibilities happening simultaneously. It's whatever you focus on that becomes your quote unquote truth.
So to pick up on some more language that you've used, just to demystify it a little bit. Now, you said your guides or higher self. Did I hear you say that?
Yeah.
So when you say higher self, is that something spiritual that is not yourself, or is that the best version of yourself? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we've got actually two brains. We have our hind brain, which is all about emotion and survival, and it does not care if you're successful or not. And it's
Mm-hmm.
also that subconscious mind that holds 95% of what you think, feel, believe, all that type of stuff. It's the records of your past.
Mm-hmm.
And chances are, whatever it's recording is probably not so fabulous. So that could be your lower self that is the self-saboteur and running the show and has all this negative stuff, and it wonders why it's stuck in this loop and can't get what it wants. But your
Mm-hmm.
higher self, your higher mind, frontal lobe, has all the answers that you need. Also, too, your heart. Your heart, again, it has the largest electromagnetic field in the body. If your heart and brain are synced up, they have found this through science, in a neutral or better energy, you will attract events, circumstances, and relationships that are truly in alignment with the life that you seek. But a lot of people are back here and they're in stress mode, so they can't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. They can't think of creative solutions. They keep reinventing the same wheel over and over again. So the higher self, from a scientific point, is when your heart and your brain are coherent, and some inner intelligence that is making all your organs functions, for one thing. It can heal you from uh deadly diseases and whatever without you mentally figuring it out. That higher intelligence will give you solutions or generate synchronicities or opportunities without you having to force your will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. I've listened to a lot of these now. So it's the law of attraction was the first part of what you're saying, but slightly different. I've never heard so much linked to the heart before. I'll be honest, and the power that you're saying comes with that, and how that needs to sync with the brain as well. What I kind of want to explore is that in some of the ancient Greek wisdom, they also talk about a higher self,
Hmm.
and it's more the best version of yourself that
Yes.
there possibly could be out there.
Yes.
And then naturally there is a gap to where your actual self is and how you act and behave and feel
Yes.
and etc. And some happiness, some eudaimonia they call it, would be shortening that gap and trying to get closer and closer and closer to your best version of yourself, your ideal daemon, as it were. Are we using the same words to describe completely different things? Or do you think they were tapping into something and we're just using similar language to explain? And that is a root source almost of happiness, is linking the two and trying to merge and get closer to that ideal version of yourself that may be mythical. Maybe you can't actually get there, but that's what happiness is all about.
So there's probably different layers of the higher self. You're going to have one that is related to ordinary earth reality. And
Mm.
then you'll probably have an oversoul aspect of you that it's not limited to or defined by your earthly experiences or your reactions to them. So you're going to have different layers of the higher self. That, again, it's not just limited to this timeline, this dimension, this reality, whatever. So there is a higher self that's beyond even what lifestyle we're living, when we're rich and we're beautiful and we're thin. We have the perfect, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever. And so we will have probably a couple different versions of what higher self actually means.
Mm.
But so Dr. Joe Dispenza, for instance, he always talks about people going into space where you're nobody in no space, no time. You're in the void of infinite possibilities, where you're just a consciousness. That is probably the ultimate higher self, that is not linked to a belief system, a philosophy, a culture, your ancestors or anything. It is more of the ultimate highest version of self, of everything. It's a one mind. It is a
Mm.
unity consciousness that sees the all. But most people here are trying to be their ideal version of their human self, and they're trying to link in of like, what would make me the happiest on this planet? What house would I have? What money would I have? What career or life purpose or partner would I have? So there's a couple different versions of higher self, but most people are going to think of it as their ideal lifestyle and what they have to start or stop doing to become in alignment with that.
So within your therapy, how do you define, because it's a big part of what you help people to do is become the best version of themselves. What is the goal the same for everyone? And how often do you get people there? How does it feel when you get someone there? Is it always a rocky path? Are some people closer to virtue than the rest of us? What's your experience of that?
Well, part of this is getting people to know what they want. The
Mm.
reason why there's a top 1% on the planet is because they're focused. They know what they want and they're willing to get it. There are a lot of people that are so stuck in their comfort zones and their belief systems or philosophies about what's good or bad or what's acceptable or unacceptable, that they hold themselves back for fear or beliefs, because of fear and beliefs. And so getting people to focus enough to go, what do you want? It's incredible how many people don't know what they want. They just don't know.
Mm.
And they, in fact, a lot of times they may believe that they know what they want, especially different cultures around the world, that may be in opposition to what their family says. And so, like, I have clients in like maybe India or other places throughout Asia that the parents want an arranged marriage, or they want their child to have a certain career to be considered acceptable. Otherwise, they will get disowned. And so they have to compete with group hive mind mentality or acceptance, tribal family beliefs and values over their own. And so part of this is going, what do you want? And are you willing to do what it takes to become that version? So it's not just me eclipsing them and waving a magic wand. They are a co-creator in their reality. They're creating their reality based on their beliefs, their speech, their habits, and their actions. And if they are unwilling to be uncomfortable, they will not have that lifestyle, because the death of dreams is in the comfort zone. And so many people are trying to stay safe and stay comfortable that they can't get to this next level of self, because that feeling of resistance is so intense and so instinctual that they believe it is their intuition rather than just emotion. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the topics that I really like looking into is conscious versus unconscious. With the way people use it these days is you walk around unconsciously and you scroll on devices and you realize you've lost an hour, or just generally in your life you're just so unconscious and you're almost like is it called an NPC, these characters that just go around and they don't really get out of their comfort. It's not even comfort zone anymore. It's just they're not conscious of, they're not present, they're not anywhere to be seen. And before you know it, years have gone past.
Yeah.
It's hard not to put that down to technology just making life so comfortable to do nothing, to do absolutely nothing. You get the dopamine for free. You go on to, oh, I don't know, well, not going to porn websites and that sort of thing, but you can do everything behind a screen these days, and you don't have to engage. You don't have to put your heart next to other people to, get in those magnetic fields that you're talking about. How do you feel that technology is sort of negatively impacting the way that we not only interact, but then we go around our lives and we don't get the chances to go anywhere near out of our comfort zone anymore?
Right. Well, just to back up just slightly, a person has to know what they want and why, and the why has to be strong enough to eclipse these comfort zones. You have
Mm.
to want something so much, either because it positively inspires you, or it is so uncomfortable, it makes you sad, scared, or angry enough that the fear of staying the same is worse than the fear of the unknown. You have to know so what you want and why. to get past some of these things, because technology, so like I'm 46 years old. In my lifetime, back in the day when I was born, 3.83 billion people on the planet. So with like half of what we have now. We had no cell towers. We had no personal computers. We had coin operated newspaper stands, telephones, and parking meters on every block, basically. We did not have any of this stuff inundating us. Now, if you wear a smartwatch and you leave your cell phone at home a quarter of a mile away, or I don't even know what that is in kilometers or whatever, but a long ways away, it says your phone is now out of range. If you look at your Wi-Fi icon, there's probably 20 names going through your house, at least here in America. And so we are being influenced by energies that are making people's electromagnetic fields dysregulated. And so people will feel depressed or anxious and run to the thing on autopilot that gives them that dopamine hit. And so again, whether it be the 5G cell towers, whether it be the dirty EMFs coming off of your cell phones, your computers, your smart meters on your house that are running your energy or whatever, we are being influenced by this all the time. And it is dysregulating people's nervous systems. And so they do go into these habitual things. And even like the blue light or the scrolling, it becomes so addictive that people are going back to over and over again, or they feel depressed. They're actually burning out the synapses, the receptor sites for their dopamine, and they don't understand why they're so depressed or anxious. Or it's also interrupting their sleep. The blue light is messing with their melatonin levels that allows them to sleep. And people will often have difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, so their nervous system cannot reset themselves. Their organs can't go through the detox functions that happen at night. And so people are going to have all these different problems in various parts of their body because they have become dysregulated from the normal rhythms and dependent on something synthetic. Sorry, that was
You're obviously passionate about this as I am.
Me and my little soapbox moment.
No, but you're more passionate than I am, and you know your facts as well. So do you have, I mean, what you do and what you do with your clients and your therapy, does it broaden to give them sensible advice that you just tell everyone to like have tech detoxes or do things that will just, without doing anything else, this can just make your life that little bit better if you give yourself some space to do things in. You don't go around with headphones in the whole time. You don't look at your phone just before bed. You don't sleep with your phone next to you. Do you have things that you tell all of your clients to do just to get away from it a little bit? Or does that not come into your world and what you do as part of your therapy?
My work is a blend of science and spirituality because I have my background started in the medical field. I worked in group homes with disabled adults that were mentally and physically disabled. I also was a medical claims examiner for Social Security Disability for years and worked as a medical massage therapist in doctors' offices for 11 years. So I look at both things. I look at is there an ordinary reality thing that you need to change, like food, diet, lifestyle, whatever, or is there something spiritual? And a lot of times I'm doing both. When somebody comes to me, I'm looking for both of those things in terms of advice. But when I'm working on them, I'm doing a combination of things like Reiki, cranial sacral therapy to reset the nervous system. I'm also doing shamanic healing where I am tapping into their consciousness, not only of their higher self, their wounded self. What does the wounded self need to release? Its belief systems and stuff like that, or its patterns. And what does the higher self need in order to want to merge with you? Or to be activated in some way. So I'm looking what needs to be removed or restored, both energetically as a practitioner and in your ordinary reality life. So I'm looking to see what I can do to contribute to your healing and what you need to do when you go home, because you are part of the solution. If I work on you and you go back to an abusive partner or you go start doing drugs and stuff, you need to stop doing something, not you, but a person needs to stop doing those types of things. You know what I mean?
So when you say wounded self, is your wounded self your actual day-to-day self, or is it something like subconscious almost?
The wounded, so our consciousness has infinite things going on in there. You may have parts of you, it's like turning the dial on a TV or radio station. Wherever you put your attention, that's going to give you the mindset, the emotions, the habits and capabilities of that version of self. So we have people that they're because of trauma, they may have versions of themselves that have the emotional range and functional capacity of a child, and they revert back to those mentalities, that mindset, and even the behavior. Some, they'll baby talk, or they'll get really small, they might like start to cave in on themselves, or they may have an angry teenager, or they may have some part that is, that used to be in prison or whatever. There are parts that of our consciousness that have their own personality. And if you hear about like people with multiple personality disorders, people can have multiple personalities that come out with different genders. They have different voice patterns. They may have different illnesses that the original self doesn't have. And so we ourselves, on a lesser level, that's not like a clinical diagnosis, have different versions of ourselves that have different capabilities and information. So like there is a future version of ourselves that we have never been, that we can tap into and ask that version of self, what do I need to start or stop doing to become you? And like it could just be focusing on the things that version would be doing and how happy you would be doing it. Just priming yourself, because they're finding in terms of neuroscience that if you practice throwing a basketball multiple times, certain parts of the brain will light up and you will improve like 25%. But even if you just mentally visualize putting it into the basket over and over again and how happy you feel doing it, the same parts of the brain light up and you improve 24%. So
I see. Was that Joe Dispenza? I can't remember where I saw
yep,
that, but yeah, just mentally thinking it
yeah,
through, the improvements are there despite
yeah,
not touching a basketball in this
right. But
situation.
the same thing with people who focus on being sick. I have a lot of people who have wished their lives away because because of their trauma, and they wonder why they start to get sick.
Mm,
People will say things, they think it's a joke, and then wonder why it happens. They think they're being prophetic or intuitive. They're not. They are programming their reality to match what they're thinking and feeling. And so there's different versions of self, either that we have experienced in this lifetime or in another. So I'm tapping it. The wounded part of the self is the one that's being destructive, the part that has bad habits, the part that allows themselves to be abused by other people, or that does things that's going to harm them mentally, emotionally, and physically, or somebody else.
mm. I think we all know those people who are incredibly negative, and it's hard to be around that energy a lot of
Yeah.
the time. It's draining, and you go away and you think next time, oh my god, I'm going to avoid that person because it's just going to bring me down, and you can't help them. I'm sure everyone's different, but how do you put a mirror up to that? How do you get them to see the effect they're having on the world by going through that? Is it softly, or sometimes do they just need a bit of a smack to the senses, as it were?
Well, it depends on the person. Really understanding, what does this person need to hear me? Because
Mm,
somebody who's super sensitive, you may need to say it in an indirect way that they get, and they go, "Oh, that makes me think of myself." You know what I mean?
mm,
Versus like, "You do this." Other
yeah.
people, they need tough love, and they need to say, "You suck. You need to do something differently." You know what I mean? Other people with narcissistic personality disorder, you can tell them anything you want, and they are not going to hear you. They'll flip it on you in a second. And
Mm,
so there are some people you just need to have a strong boundary with. And it's not even about telling them, I don't like this. You just simply have to walk away. There are some people you have to cut out of your life because they will not hear you. And if you subject yourself to them, that's on you. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah, no,
whatever
it's
you
fair enough.
allow will continue. And so if this person is not going to hear you and they don't want to change, you have to remove yourself from the situation.
Mm. And what do you find is the hardest thing for people to get over? People that come and present themselves to you. What is the one hardest thing that people just struggle to move past or accept or see and be aware of in their own lives?
That they probably did it to themselves.
Really,
So
there's a level of
oftentimes,
responsibility to everything.
oh yeah, people don't like the word extreme ownership because they don't want to be blamed or shamed for something. But if you can come into this place of neutrality, and see the role that you played in every instance that was either successful or bad, you will start to see something. Um, so I had a certain mindset for a really long period of time, and when I started doing a method called HeartMath, which I'll explain later, um, I was just like, okay, I'm going to this place of absolute total neutrality where I am the observer of my life, like having a life review, and no judgment whatsoever. I'm like, show me, higher self, universe, whatever, what my role was in every terrible situation in my life. And I saw that I had a certain mindset, a certain belief system that allowed toxic people, narcissistic relationships, or bad outcomes with doctors and what have you. I made decisions based on my beliefs or my mindset or what I was worthy of that perpetuated these things. Even making a declaration when I was 17 that ended up playing out for the next 25 years of my life. I said it with such emotional intensity and repetition, it almost put me in the grave later. And I didn't realize that I had set this in motion and that it involved probably, oh God, at least 60 people.
Wow.
And people do not realize that when they go through something traumatic or stressful, it takes a snapshot of that and they make a declaration, whether it's conscious or unconscious. I will never do this. I will always have to do this. I have to avoid this, whatever it is. They're saying something that ends out playing out for the next, I don't know how many years of their life. They're programming themselves, and then they wonder why all these people keep showing up, especially toxic relationships. They're like, I keep having all these bad habits or not bad habits, bad luck. I'm like, no, it's probably bad decisions. People overlook and override red flags because they hope that if they stick it out long enough, they'll get what they want, rather than realizing that this is a bad situation and they need to do something else.
Do you think everyone's in some way destined to have to go through these hard things and figure it out along the way? So you said that was intense self-therapy that you had to put yourself through to go back to look at would you say from the age of 17 and the impact that it's had. It's hard not to become bitter and think, oh my, like if somebody had just told me this when I was 18, I could have had a glorious next 15 years. Or do you think we're just destined and it's just one of those life things that you're human things that you have to go through a bit of crap, or like you don't know you've lived, otherwise it would just be too easy to live life.
Yeah, so I think part of this is like if you do certain things for yourself that allow you to go into, again, this neutral or better energy. This is what like the Buddhists are talking about: equanimity, non-reaction, the middle path, the middle way. Even the Egyptians have this goddess Mot. She's like a little cat-headed figure weighing a human heart against a feather. It is not the flesh heart, it is the electromagnetic heart. If you are neutral or better, you weigh as much as a feather. You don't have imbalances. You don't have like mental, emotional, physical, financial imbalances. You don't have deficits. You don't have this negative karma that you're constantly having to offset. Most people are so swayed by their reactions to life, their emotional and mental reactions to life, that they keep repeating it. And so I think part of this is just coming into this place of neutrality. And when you can see the past without regret. You come into this place of just utter like radical acceptance immediately, totally being present when you are just focused like the baseline of like HeartMath, and I'll explain that in a sec, is like putting your attention or awareness in the area of your heart and just noticing the air going in, the air going out. Being a neutral observer of your own breath. Again, there is no past, there is no future. There is only the now, and the now is where you have power. And you will start, the more present you get, the more it starts to actually build up your resilience and tolerance to stress. So it takes a lot more to stress you out. It also starts to create new reference patterns that have nothing to do with the past. And so you will actually see your past differently because you're learning to feel differently. You only see your past a certain way through the filter of the emotion and the meaning you put on it.
So you become an observer, not only in the
Yeah.
present and what future you can have, but what you've been through already.
Yeah.
This,
Well, when you're,
go on.
I was just about to say, when you're in a place of neutrality and you can neutralize these reactions in you, you no longer start referencing the past.
Mm.
Because
And this is
that's what
something.
people do, is that they're repeating their past emotions. Keep going.
This is something that I can't remember if it's Aristotle or what one of the ancient Greeks mentions. Is part of happiness is about running your own race, and you get to this euthymia, this tranquility, where it's just you and you're not competing. However competing might be, it might be getting jealous of people, it might be putting people down because it makes you feel a little bit better for a second, but it's about running your own race and not worrying about others, and it's just you're the only one who can control your reactions, how you feel about things, and moving on from there. So it sounds like you're blending ancient Greek wisdom, Buddhism, and lots of other bits and pieces. And you cited the Egyptians, and pulling it all together, and everyone's sort of talking the same sort of language, and their language is slightly different, but we're all looking at the same things and talking about the same things.
Even the Mayans talk about it. The Inca talk about it too, the heart. The Asian traditions, they talk about the heart. If you are in balance, if you are, again, true balance is neutrality. It's not the super high where you're grasping this thing that you want, or the lows where you're avoiding something that you don't want. When you are here and you're building this relationship with whatever intelligence is in here, you start to inform the collective field rather than be informed by it. You are sourcing your truth from within. And if you do it well enough and you can come into that place of neutral or better, you have the courage to be disliked because you are no longer sourcing meaning or value or worth from something or someone external to you. And so if you can come into a place of neutrality and just hold that regardless of what is or is not happening in your environment, you will have the game of life in your hand. People's problem is that they overreact and then they put a crappy meaning on it.
It's so different to what you see if you scroll on TikTok or you look on YouTube, or if you have to earn money, you have to drive the cars, you have to do all these things, and you keep repeating neutral or better as an end goal. Not only seems achievable, but to be happy with neutral or better, a mindset shift for a hell of a lot of people who are getting pumped into them that you have to be waking up at 5 a.m. every morning. You have to, work harder than the person next to you. You have to push. You have to, force yourself through life almost. It seems like a nicer way to live.
So I've worked with people in 33 countries worldwide, and I've worked with some of the wealthiest and some of the poorest, even somebody's homeless, several people who are homeless. And it doesn't matter how much money you have. If your mind and emotions are not well, it doesn't matter. Some of the wealthiest CEOs are alcoholics, drug addicts, and have horrible relationships with their kids, their spouses, with themselves. Their health is terrible because they don't know how to manage this. And so when I say neutral or better, the people that are really, truly enjoying the game of life, they're not feeling corded into the collective and wondering, does this person like my house? Does this person like my car? Am I pretty enough? Whatever. If you see there's some really amazingly powerful actors and influencers out there. They're walking around in t-shirts and jeans, and they're on their yachts. They're doing whatever they want to do, but they are not concerned about appearance. They're not concerned, does this person like me or not? That's not their shtick. But the people that are striving for that, they are deeply embedded in it, and they have extreme mood swings. They have some strange habits and whatever, because they're trying to show you this lifestyle. But when you actually meet them, very few of them actually have the mindset or the emotions or the personality that a person, you know what I mean, is like,
Mm.
yeah, I want to emulate that.
Well, you
You know
don't
what
hang
I
around for the lows. You just see the highs, and they
Yes.
like social media is just one of my pet peeves, and it just allows people to show off and live their best life for everyone else, but we don't get to hang around for the lows, like you say, where they're just deeply not happy. And if they feel the need to put something out there to show the world how good they're doing, where's that energy coming from? What are they actually saying with each of those posts? And you just start to feel pretty sorry for these people that need to do that on an hourly basis sometimes.
Well, that's the mind control. That's what mind control is. They're trying to sell you something. Either they're trying to sell themselves, like me, love me, want my product, or you're not good enough, so you want to spend the money to be like me. And so when you're talking about mind control, they will say this is scarce, rare, whatever. So you want this. For a limited time only, or you lack something that I have and only I can give it to you, or whatever it is. And so they will show you these things to attract you, to attract the person that believes they need that in order to
Mm,
be happy. And to be honest, it doesn't matter what it is. It isn't the object that makes them happy. It's people think that they need that object to have a feeling, and once they get the object, they realize the feeling is not behind it. It's part of the journey, is to generate that feeling regardless of what you do or do not have, whether that be the feeling of freedom, the feeling of abundance, the feeling of generosity. People are usually seeking a feeling through these things. And once they get the thing, they realize the thing doesn't have the feeling. It's you.
mm. No, I
And
couldn't
so,
agree more.
yeah. So basically, when you're seeing TikTok and all these things, people are trying to sell something. They're trying to, again, either for their own ego, worth, and value, or to sell you something, their product, their clothing, their makeup, their services, their whatever. It's just a tactic. And so when you start to compare yourself to them, they're like, they must be doing something right. I need their advice. I need their service to be like them, so that whatever. That's all that is.
I think a lot of people, and I've thought this for a while, a lot of people would benefit from just some basic marketing training when they're like 18. And then you realize that they're not trying to, like you said, the product, the watch. You buy this watch and you'll be like James Bond, you'll fly on yachts, you'll do whatever with beautiful women. And this will be, they're selling this lifestyle from this one item. And you just see that's everything they're trying to create. It's like the Rolex watch is in an advert, but it's everything else that's in that advert doesn't come with the watch. So the watch is just nothing. It's just a crappy watch that well, maybe not crappy watch, but it might be a nice watch, but it is just a watch. It's not a lifestyle. And you, like you say, you get the watch, you attain the watch, you earn enough to put the watch on your wrist. And then you have this sort of sadness and this buyer's remorse, because you're like, well, where's all the other stuff that I built up in my head that I'd be complete once I had this one item? And I think, yeah, a little bit of marketing and a little bit of branding knowledge when you're a bit younger, it would make people a lot less materialistic in their outlook, and they realize they're effectively being lied to and sold things. Every place you turn these days, you can't get away from it. It's really, really tricky.
Well, a lot of people don't realize too that part of the law of attraction isn't just what you think and what you feel, it's what you do.
Mm.
A lot of these people that are super wealthy, they work their butts off. I mean, there are some people, yes, they've inherited it from people who were very savvy with their money and worked really hard, or they were just genius in what they did. They had $1 million idea or $600 million idea. Like, I think it was Henry Ford or somebody like that. So when you have these people who they either have really great ideas in how to sell them, because that's one way of getting money, or they work really hard. But it's not always that you have to work hard to get what you want. You just have to think smarter than somebody else. But they're willing to do things that other people won't do. If you look at the habits of the super wealthy, they are so different than the people who are poor. These people are focused on solutions and the positive and what can they do to get that goal. And they're willing to do just about anything. These people have a lot of focus on problems, negativity, worst case scenarios, and all the reasons or excuses why they couldn't, wouldn't, shouldn't do that. And there's a lot of anger or jealousy, to be honest, for people down here about the people up here, but they have different mindsets and different habits. And so people have to be willing to do what that person on the advertising was willing to do, or think of a better way to do it. But a lot of people don't. They just go, I'm going to sit on the couch, eat my potato chips and meditate for an hour, but then spend the other 23 hours a day being negative and in opposition of what I wanted.
I could go on about this for a long time. So we better let's get positive rather than negative about all of these things.
Yeah.
And so tell me about HeartMath. What is it? Where did it come from? How did it positively impact your life? And you've also mentioned identity shifting as well.
Yeah.
And it's all wrapped into the same package. So yeah, could you enlighten me about where it's come from and how it's affected you?
Yeah, so the HeartMath Institute was established, I think, in 1991 in California, in the United States. One of the co-founders or founding director, Bruce Cryer, who I've interviewed a couple times, he was part of that. So they were studying the heart, not just its structures, but its function. And most people think the heart is a pump of blood. It's not a pump at all. Like I said, it has like a baby brain of 44,000 neurons that generates the largest electromagnetic field in your body. And it is 40 to 60 times electrically stronger or 100 times more magnetically stronger than your brain. And so it's going to produce things like oxytocin and other, happy hormones that make you feel bonded to somebody else or safe, or it's okay to be vulnerable or intimate or whatever. And they're finding that it stores information, it stores memories for better or worse. And when you can get into a breathing pattern that allows your heart to go into a coherent rhythm, it will change the brain. They will sync up like metronomes, and they will improve your mood, your energy, and your performance significantly. So like a lot of people are running around back with their consciousness back here, which is all about emotion and survival. And your limbic brain does not care if you're successful or not. It's just like, I want to eat, sleep, and run away or hit somebody, But our crowning glory, our frontal lobe, is all about logic, reason, decision making, intuition, and what have you. It's about creativity and ingenuity, flexibility. And so when your heart and your brain are out of sync, your performance drops significantly. Your health goes out of sync because those incoherent rhythms create dysregulation, inflammation, and disease within the body. And so when you are like, let's say, starting off with heart focused breathing, you just notice the air going in and the air going out, about 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. That again stops the adrenaline and cortisol that keep you stuck in fight, flight, or freeze and survival, and puts you back here on the frontal lobe, which again, logic, reason, decision making. It puts you back in homeostasis where the body goes, oh, I have all the access to my internal resources to heal myself. If you want to pair that breathing with a positive emotion like gratitude, joy, appreciation, things like that, you start producing serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and DHEA that will really start to switch on these different energy centers or functions throughout your body that allow you to truly heal at an accelerated rate. And so that's, again, a lot of like the Buddhists, they already knew this, a lot of the different Asian cultures or whatever, they're all about finding balance in the body. But it didn't matter where I looked throughout the world, whatever practitioners, North America, South America, Africa, Asia, whatever. It's about finding that inner balance. And you can take it even a step further. Do heart focused breathing with a positive emotion, radiate it throughout your body so that all of your attention is touching somewhere in your body. It could be your, making sure it's in your feet,
So
your
is that like a
legs.
body scan that you talk about in
Yes.
Headspace? Yeah.
Yes. And so you're breathing your consciousness or awareness of this neutral or better energy all throughout your cells. You're reinforming the entire self of this new energy. And if you do that for 3.5 minutes, up to like 10 minutes, a couple times a day, you start to reprogram your energy centers. You also start to build up your resilience and tolerance to stress. So it takes a lot more to invoke that stress response that keeps people stuck in fight, flight, or freeze. But it also, like I said, creates new reference patterns that have nothing to do with the past. And so if you're doing this consistently, people start to have like a life review within the first week and a half, 2 weeks without the emotion. And so when that negative emotion is gone, they actually see their past differently. And a lot of my clients will report trying to think negatively about somebody that really hurt them. And it's like shooting blanks. They can't feel the negativity because they've rewired their brain. And when you're doing this too, this neutral or better energy, you're putting yourself into alpha theta brainwave frequencies that are these meditative states that do rewire your brain, that also have solutions. So you can go into this neutral or better energy for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then ask yourself, that has all the answers, what do I need to know? What are my next steps? What is the solution? And you may get it right then and there, or when you are least attached to the answer, like when you're doing something like putting the liner in a garbage can. You don't care. You're just like, woo, and it just comes into your awareness like, you're welcome. You know what I mean? And so people start to realize that these things that used to stress them out or trigger them no longer do. And when you're doing this, another component of this is that your vagus nerve, which is responsible for thinking, speech, swallowing, heart rate and rhythm and digestion, and also your fight, flight, or freeze response, listens to your breath. And most people breathe shallowly or they hold their breath when they're stressed. And so their patterns have weakened their nervous system. So when you're doing this breathing, it's like going to the gym and lifting weights. If you do it rarely, you won't have that toned beach body. But if you do it often enough, you will look strong and good, even if you miss a few days. And another analogy would be, if you never lift weights and you suddenly have to lift this heavy, 10 kilogram weight or whatever, at first it might feel heavy. But if you lift weights a lot, when you lift that weight, it will feel lighter. It's still 10 kilograms or whatever it is, 50 pounds, whatever it is for you guys. But it feels lighter. You know what I mean? Because you're stronger. And so when you're strengthening your vagus nerve, the things that you used to react to, you no longer do. Life feels better because you're not in a constant negative reaction.
That's great. I want to get into the protocol and what you would tell people to do. I've had some other guests who have given me suggestions very similar to what you're saying. But before we do, talk me through the impact it's had on you, what you were like before, how long you were practicing this daily, weekly, monthly, etc., what it took, and then the impacts that it's had for you personally.
So I've been a shamanic practitioner for about 20 and a half years, and HeartMath came into my life about 2.5 years ago. So prior to HeartMath, I had come very far in my life in my understanding of the traumas and things I experienced, like the mental understanding, but I could not change my physiological response to stress. I still had a reaction, or I still like try to suppress it or whatever. but my belief systems were very similar. But when I started doing HeartMath, my reality changed because I saw everything differently from a place that felt different. And so one of the things that happened is that I had a situation that involved 9 people. And that situation was traumatic. I didn't do anything. I just called it out. But because people were being manipulated or swayed into believing one particular person, they sort of looked at me like I was the bad guy. And all this negativity directed at me made me feel so dysregulated that I felt like my years of training and healing went out the window overnight. And I was like, I cannot start over at ground zero, feeling depressed or anxious or having panic. So I'd had purchased HeartMath, the resilient heart trauma sensitive training online, but I hadn't used it yet. So I was like, here's the perfect time because all of my other training is not helping me. This is not a spiritual problem. This is something in here that needs to change. So I started the training online and I started practicing. And within a week and a half, the situation resolved itself because there's actually a protocol in there called Heart Soak where you do this particular practice, which I will explain. And it affected the field and the people involved in my situation without me having to participate at all. It was just all energetic, all long distance, all remote. It just resolved it itself, and I did not have to do anything to talk to any of them or do anything in particular. I just did the heart math, and it resolved the whole situation. But it also resolved the feeling within me, and from that moment forward, I saw my entire past differently. So I started to really realize the value in coming into this place of neutral or better energy and how many areas it could be applied to, including healing. Because your body, when it's dysregulated, especially with your nervous system, that your reaction to stress will turn on certain genetic expressions that are more prevalent in your family line that could lead to what we consider genetic diseases. Most people, they don't have to have it that way. They don't have to have cancer. They don't have to have all these things, but we have our environment or our reaction to our environment flipping on these gene expressions that do not have to be that way. So if you're in this neutral or better energy, the body can actually access internal resources that can create spontaneous healing, even from terminal diseases. So I don't know if that answered your question because I went off again.
Well, seeing as you mentioned it, I've seen one of the things you've put out there, and you can tell me if this was before HeartMath or after, about shutting off a rare terminal disease that you had. How now
Yeah.
this is going to the extremes of
Yeah.
what I can understand. I'll be honest with you. Talk me through what you mean and when that happened in your life, as much as you're comfortable to talk about it.
Oh yeah, that does bother me. So in 2005, I had 2 ovarian cysts on my right ovary, and the doctor removed them, but I was not getting better afterwards. I started having pain and swelling in my abdomen, and it was about a year into my shamanic training. So I had started to train as a shamanic practitioner, where I was developing my psychic skills and my healing abilities. And my psychic skills had always sort of been there. Like I was always seeing spirits since I was a baby. I was always having premonitions that would prevent accidents and death. But I was not able to call upon them at will, especially for myself, until my training started in 2004. So I had gotten enough of my ability to talk to my guides or my higher self and understand what they were saying by the time I'd had this surgery. So I felt a lump in my abdomen and I asked my higher self or guides, what is this? And they said, they left something in you. There's something inside you that will kill you and you need to call your doctor. So I made an appointment, but they had me wait like a month and a half, 2 months to get in. They were not in any rush to see me. So I asked my guides again, tell me more. And they said, you left something on one of your altars that gives you an indication of what this is. And I didn't realize I had purchased the figurine of a pregnant woman and put a wooden skull next to it. And so it was really letting me know that something was swelling in my abdomen, related to my reproductive organs, and that it was deadly. So when I went to the doctor to ask for an ultrasound, they said I was just fat or constipated and that I needed to go home. Yeah.
Jesus.
And by that time, I could feel what felt like a grapefruit in my abdomen. I said, how can you not feel that? And they said, it's just all in your head. You know, you're mentally ill anyway, so it's just all in your head. And I was just like, wow. And so I refused to leave the doctor's office, was quite belligerent, and said I won't leave without an ultrasound script. So I had the ultrasound. They rushed me in for an MRI. They wouldn't tell me what they saw, but they just said, we need to do surgery immediately. And they said, we don't know how we missed it. And I said, missed what? And they said, well, whatever this is, we should have seen it before. I said, are you saying that there was cancer and you missed it? And they said, well, we don't know until we go in. And I just had a really bad feeling about it. And at that time, I had actually been working for a chiropractor as a massage therapist. And he asked me, he's like, what is this ribbon in your abdomen? I was like, what do you mean? He's like, look at this. It looks like you have some radioactive ribbon inside you. And I didn't realize that the surgeon, these couple months later, could see that ribbon and knew exactly what was inside my gut, because that ribbon was there to prevent accidents like this. So I had my records transferred to an oncologist, had them do a surgery. They found 2 grapefruit-sized abscesses in my gut that fused all of my organs together. And inside one of those abscesses was a large wad of surgical gauze, like a sponge. And it had a radioactive marker that showed up on the ultrasound. And so they tried to say that they had no idea what it was. But my guide had told me if I went back to the original doctor, they would have lied and covered it up. So I did not go back to that person. I went to somebody else. So 8 months after that surgery, where they removed the abscesses and surgically separated all of my organs, the inflammation and swelling and infection was still there. So 8 months later, I had lost my entire reproductive system. And so they removed all of those organs and then surgically separated the rest of my organs again. And then 8 months later, I collapsed in the shower with chest pain and shortness of breath. And they had found that the infection had spread throughout my body and created what's called Takayasu's arteritis, which is a rare autoimmune disease that eats through your arteries and your aorta. And so because I was in the midst, I know, right?
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Because I was in the midst of a medical lawsuit, I was refused care by over 40 doctors in 3 different states. They told me that my test results were normal, that I was mentally ill. It was all in my head. They said that I was just a typical woman that needed to learn to relax, and that my symptoms had no basis in reality, and that I should go see a psychiatrist.
Was it always men telling you this out of interest?
Yes, but there was one woman who said she knew it was wrong, but because I was in a lawsuit, she refused to put it in writing. And so I actually had to order my records to find out that I had this condition, that I had 4 hernias, a collapsing intestine, a twisted bowel, and all these different things. And so when I brought the medical records to the doctors, they said, sorry, we won't help you. So even when confronted with the truth, they wouldn't help me. And they tried to prescribe me with medications. And I said, do you realize that the conditions I'm having are contraindicated and that these drugs would kill me? They sat down at the computer, looked it up, and they said, oh, I guess you're right. And so I didn't listen to them. So my guides, I asked them, I said, what do I need to do? And they said, first of all, you need to go to California. And I said, who's in California? And they said, a doctor. I said, I don't know any doctors there. And they said, you know somebody who does. And they flashed the image of a doctor I used to work with at Social Security Disability when I read medical claims. And so I called him, asked him for a referral down there, and he told me to go to Stanford Hospital. So when I booked a flight down there, I looked out the window over the horizon and I asked them, will they help me? And these tiny little lakes lit up in the distance, and they said they will have an answer for you, but they will not be able to help you. And I said, who will? And this giant lake lit up in the distance like a copper penny. And they said, you will have to travel east, but don't worry, the people in California know exactly where to go. So I flew to California. The doctor used to work at this place called the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. They said, you need to travel east to this Mayo Clinic hospital, and they will know exactly what to do for you. So that's what I did. And my guides told me what to start and stop doing to shut off the terminal disease, because I had lost 90% of the blood to my left arm and most of it to my legs. And the doctors at this hospital put synthetic tubes in my chest made out of ski suit material, Gore-Tex and Decron waterproof fabric in my chest to give me the blood to both my legs, my left arm, and my brain. But by that time, I was having seizures every day. I had 16 strokes that wiped out my memory. I didn't know who I was, and I couldn't read or do math. And so I just had to listen to these guides tell me what to do to put myself back together again. And so I was basically, a lot of it had to do with diet, but also people working on me energetically. The diet shut off the disease. It healed my brain. I did math exercises 7 hours a day, 7 days a week for 6 months, and got my brain to recognize math again. And then I got myself to read again, and my memory came back through shamanic healing. And so I was able to turn all this off and go on with my life. But the HeartMath helped me rewire my body so I no longer had pain and weakness. Because I had left-sided paralysis and weakness for 11 years. I even had paralysis of my gut, so I had to drink my food for 3 years. And the HeartMath switched off all of that. My organs rearranged themselves, so I no longer had hernias. My nervous system reset itself, so I no longer had pain on my left side. And I could eat solid food again, and I didn't have any of the problems that I had before. So it's a combination of things that came through to give me my life back.
That's insane. That's just full on.
Cheers.
Dude, cheers. I wish I'd done stronger. So even as close as 2.5 years ago, you must have been so close to death, so close to just thinking, my body can't go through this. This is insane.
Well, the surgery happened 13 years ago, and so I actually I have not been close to death since 2013. That was the last relapse. I haven't had anything since. I've had no seizures or strokes since 2013. I just had the residual stuff that I was working with that the HeartMath helped resolve for me. But yeah, no, I actually had to prepay for my cremation. My urn came in the mail with thank you cards for attending my funeral. Had my will written, whatever, because I would wake up every day with no circulation in my limbs and my face would be numb. And so I knew I was just on the outs. But my guides, I could see spirits all day, every day with my eyes wide open. And some of them would breathe in my chest for me. Sometimes I would have seizures or strokes driving on the freeway, and they would help me get to the side of the road and recover. You know what I mean? So my relationship with the other side got so strong. That was one of the benefits of this, is I could no longer trust the outer world. So I had to go completely inward despite all of the opposition and build up a skill that would then become my career, where I'm helping people all over the world. So it benefited me extremely well. So
I do not know where to start. Firstly, what have you done with the urn? And what do you keep in the urn now? Is it like a marker, a reminder, memento?
the urn is in a dump somewhere. I still have the little card for if somebody needs to pick up my body anywhere it is in the world. I paid for the service, so they can cremate me anywhere. It's already paid. But the urn, I was just like, I don't need to carry around my little death, thing anymore. People can put me in a
Mm.
shoebox and then dump me in a river. I don't care. But as I say, but at this point, I don't even look at it that way anymore. I've sort of I spent the first 30 some years wishing my life away because of what happened to me in my childhood, only to have myself love myself so much I was willing to go against medical advice in countless situations, and love myself so much I was willing to do things to listen to something that people said made me mentally ill. You
Mm.
know what I mean? They said I was crazy because I could see and hear things. They thought I was schizophrenic. They actually
Mm.
medicated me for 2 years in I think from 2002 to 2004, which is partially why the doctors assumed that there was something wrong with me. And then when they realized there wasn't, they could still use it against me to shame me.
Because it's on your record.
Yeah.
Mm.
They used it as their excuse. I've not been on any medication since 2004, and I feel fabulous. I don't need that stuff. But it was at the time, like, my mother had died. I'd gotten a divorce, all these different things. There were so many things that were contributing to me being depressed at the time that I went down that route. And then I realized that none of these things would solve the depression. I had to fix my mind, and therapy and the meds for me personally didn't do it. I know some people benefit from it, and that's fine, but for me, I had to change my physiological response to stress and my belief systems.
And I've got to ask, what were the dietary changes that you made? Did you have a particularly bad diet to start with, or was it how drastic were these changes to have these huge effects on you and the impact?
So because of the gut paralysis that I had, and also the inflammation, it was difficult for me to digest any type of animal protein. It just took too long. I couldn't do it. I had to drink shakes, actually, protein shakes. So my diet
Mm.
was like grain-free, sugar-free, vegan. So no rice, no wheat, no whatever. And I don't know what it's like in other countries, but in America, we load Roundup and other herbicides, pesticides all over our stuff. And so I'm not surprised
Mm.
that my body didn't like it, or all the GMOs and whatever. So my body was just like absolutely no grains, no bread products, no starches. Um, it was,
And
yeah, more.
have you stuck to that now to this day?
I did for 11 years, and now I don't have to. Now it's more like I have fish. I still don't eat the bread, but I will have things like, like sweet potatoes or something like that. But I do have solid foods. I'll have like, salads, vegetables, maybe some lean um, seafood, or occasionally chicken. But for the most part, I'm not completely vegan anymore, just because my body's demands for higher protein. It's just what it is. I also no dairy, and I still don't have dairy to this day. So there's and I don't do sugar. I don't drink. Um,
When you say
yeah.
don't do sugar, do you mean zero sugar?
If a piece of fruit like raspberries, blueberries has their own natural sugars, I will eat that. But I do not put sugar or artificial sweeteners or even honey in my food because my body does not like it.
Sweets,
And
chocolate, that sort of thing, just absolute. What do you eat? So fruit, you get some sugars
yeah,
from
like
that, and that's you
berries,
get that kick there.
berries.
Is there
Yeah,
anything
and
else? You said not even honey.
yeah, I mean, if I do have honey, it will be occasionally, and it will be raw honey, not something that's processed or what have you. But it's just rare. I think we have been programmed, society wise, that you eat a certain way, even to be socially acceptable. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And back in the day, I used to be way heavier than I am now. I used to be super overweight back in early 2000 and into the 1990s and stuff like that. And so I ate a lot of sugar. I ate a lot of wheat and dairy and things that were not good for me. But it was a major lifestyle shift to change to a super clean diet when I was ill. And a lot of the things that my guide had me eat were things like turmeric, which I didn't know anything about before, which is anti-inflammatory. He had me eat a lot of things like beets and curry and things like thyme, oregano, or rosemary. They're antifungal, antimicrobial, antibacterial types of herbs. Things like fennel for digestion. And I didn't know anything about these things, but he's just like, grab this off the shelf, grab this off the shelf, grab this off the shelf. And then when I look it up later in like herbal medicine books, they actually had medicinal properties. So he was basically like a little naturopathic doctor that was telling me what I needed to do to stop the inflammation in my body. And so I no longer have seizures. I have not had seizures since 2013. And I had grand mal seizures and petite seizures. I had 16 strokes. I don't have those anymore either. I don't have any of the stuff. Again, even my organs rearranged themselves, and I no longer have pain or weakness anywhere in my body. So neuroplasticity, that's the joy of neuroplasticity. So when people think that they cannot change, or that say the doctors say there's no cure through that platform. Western medicine can't cure something from their maybe their viewpoint, but that doesn't mean people haven't cured themselves constantly throughout the world from even stage 4 cancer. There's cases of it everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So going back to HeartMath
Yeah.
protocol. So I was talking to Matt Omo, who's a sound healer from Australia. And I said to him, if you could tell someone one thing to live a better life or to lead a good life, what would you tell them to do? And he said, right, okay, I'll tell you this. It might not sound like a lot, but you do it for a week, do it for a month, and you'll feel the benefits. And it was as simple as one hand on heart, so you can hear the heartbeat, one hand just under your navel, and just listen, just enjoy the silence, listen to it 5 minutes a day, and do that for a week, do that for a month. That was his protocol, and that's what he suggested doing. If I asked you the same thing, what protocol, what essence, what would be the best bit of HeartMath that you would tell someone to do to live a good life? What would that one thing be?
Well, he just the very baseline of all of their techniques was exactly that. Hand on heart, if you want to put it on the belly or right right below, two of them there. That lets you feel the centers, not only where the heart is, but where the air goes in and the air goes out. So just, again, the observation of the breath. He calls it listening, but you're just observing the breath. That is the baseline of all HeartMath techniques. If you master that, you've won, because you can do that even when somebody is yelling at you. If you can change how you breathe, even in the midst of a stressor, you will react differently. So he was not wrong in that. If you want to pair it again with a positive emotion, you can that you radiate throughout the rest of your body, great. But just breathing, it's like lifting weights for your vagus nerve. It makes you stronger. So just like I was saying before, if you lift 50 pounds for the first time and you're weak, it's going to feel heavy. But if you work out all the time, it's going to feel easy, even though it's the same weight. The same thing with breathing. If you can control your breathing patterns and how you react, that it's going to change your mind. It's going to change your brain entirely. And so just whenever you feel stressed out, take a coherence break, go breathe. If you have to do it for 30 seconds, I don't care. There are times where I'm driving and I put my hand on my heart and I just breathe, or I'm pushing my cart at the grocery store, or somebody's talking to me. If I feel a little dysregulated, stop the amount of time that you don't feel good, interrupt the pattern and establish a new one. So to circle back around to what is the one thing, stop your pattern and interrupt it and introduce it with a new one that's calm and peaceful. If you can get into that calmness, that neutrality, everything else is going to change. You're going to have solutions pop up for you. Things are going to happen. Your brain's just going to change automatically.
And going deeper into the actual protocol, you mentioned earlier 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out.
Yeah, you don't have to like 1, 2, you don't have to count. You're just going to notice that you're breathing a little more slowly and a little more deeper or deeply than a normal. Yeah, I'm
Mm.
like, how do I speak? Because most people, like I said, they'll breathe shallowly or hold their breath. In fact, my Apple Watch, I've had that on before, and it will start beeping at me because it says your oxygen is at 77%. I'm like, what the heck? It's because I was holding my breath while watching something on TV or watching something on the computer. I have a tendency that when I'm super focused, I hold my breath for long periods of time. So I was like, dang it. And people don't realize they're doing that all the time, and they're establishing their own dysregulation, wondering why they feel stressed.
So it's just more about you come across box breathing, where breathe in, hold, breathe out, hold, and 2 seconds, 4 seconds, whatever it is. Is it more of a just continuous thing that you're conscious and thinking about your breathing more than you're not, and just being unconscious about the whole
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah. I mean, box breathing is good too. I've just found with the HeartMath that people will often get dysregulated even talking to somebody on the phone. You don't even have to, you can keep your phone conversation going, just put a hand on your heart and just noticing the air going in, the air going out while the person's talking. You can do
Mm.
the same thing in a very covert way if you're at a dinner party. Put your hand on your stomach rather than your heart. Or just, you can just put it right here, whatever it is that you want to do, some micro movement that lets you know that you're paying attention to your breath.
Mm.
And I've had people who are actively yelling at me because of I don't even know what. And I just went into neutral breathing because I couldn't think of anything positive. The person actually stopped, looked at me confused, and said, "What was I saying?" I've had people in other countries go, "Are you doing something to me right now?" I said, "No, I'm just breathing." Because of that quantum entanglement. You can radiate this to other people.
So
So
we're
like
getting
one of
into Jedi mind tricks now. Your foot.
No, it's just straight up, physics where attention goes, energy flows. So if you're doing your neutral or better breathing, you radiate it throughout your body and then you want to radiate to somebody else. You don't have to resolve or do anything for them. Just send that neutral or better energy. Not only will you have not only will your environment and the people in it change, but you will have a better experience of them. You will either not be triggered by them, or you will no longer feel like you need to fix them, save them, or even in some cases be connected with them at all. A lot of
Mm.
people will stop having these toxic relationships because they finally see an unseen pattern from a place of neutrality that they couldn't before. Like toxic narcissistic relationships, they will often see the things that they were uh, unwilling to see because they might have to change something.
And when you were talking about the syncing up the brain and the heart, is this something that HeartMath teaches us will happen through the breathing techniques, or
Yes.
there's more to it to cause this and get the benefits from
No,
grounding yourself, if you want to call it that, or whatever?
no. So because your heart, remember your heart is 40 to 60 times stronger than your brain electrically and
Mm.
100 times magnetically, just by changing the rhythms in your heart, it will automatically change your brain without you mentally having to figure it out. Because a lot of times people, they say that they want one thing, but they feel the opposite. Like they want love, but they feel loss or loneliness, or they want money, but they feel lack. If you can get yourself into that neutral or better energy, like neutral or even gratitude, and you think of money and gratitude, you just synced these things up rather than, creating resistance or putting one foot on the gas and the other foot on the brake. So just changing how you feel will change how you think, speak, and act. It will create a brain coherence automatically because it changes the rhythm and the brainwave pattern out of beta, which is these high, fast patterns that keep you stuck in fight, flight, or freeze. And when you're breathing this way, they say the sweet spot is like 3.5 minutes. But if you can do it for 10 minutes, great. But when you're doing this neutral breathing for like 3.5 minutes, you automatically start to go into alpha theta. which are these relaxed meditative states that, like I said, neurofeedback specialists use to reprogram people out of depression, anxiety, PTSD, and addiction. So when you're your own little neurofeedback machine walking around everywhere, that if you want to do these breathing techniques for 3.5 minutes 4 times a day, good for you. Your life will change.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about Reiki
Okay.
really quickly because I first, obviously, it's been around for quite a while.
Yeah.
Never any interest in it in my life. It's not that I don't believe in these things. It's just never come up. And I had the opportunity to do it two weekends ago, and I didn't. I can't say I felt anything. I'm not sure what I was supposed to feel, but certainly afterwards, I felt beyond relaxed. It was actually almost like I was a little bit on drugs. I was walking around in a bit of a dream state, and it took quite a while to wear off. So that was my experience of it. What does Reiki mean to you, and what do you why do you enjoy practicing it? Why do you enjoy it? Do you give and receive? How does it work with you in your life at the moment?
Reiki is basically the practice of connecting to or tuning into universal life force energy. So we're surrounded. There is no empty space. Everything is constantly in motion. There's energy, whether we can recognize it with our human eyeballs or not. There is no empty space. So when you are allowing yourself to tap into the all, that universal life force energy, and allow it to flow through you into somebody else, that the body's intelligence, just by putting your hands on certain energy centers of their body, the other person will absorb that energy, and their own body will determine where to put it. So you don't have to manipulate it in any way. Like a shamanic practitioner, we do drumming, rattling, singing. We're looking for things to remove or restore, whether it's intrusive energies or entities or whatever that we're removing, or syncing you up with higher vibrational frequencies to put you in alignment with what you want. Reiki is just allowing you as a practitioner to be a hollow bone for this energy to flow through. And people don't realize that it's like your left hand is a negative node and your right hand is a positive node. And when you put the two together, either like this or on opposite sides of a body part, you create a full circuit for energy to flow through that may be interrupted by illness or by broken bones or by some sort of other thing going on. And when that energy starts to flow through the practitioner into the person, it reinforms your electromagnetic field to that neutral or better frequency, where again the mind and body can heal itself. It's just in this receiving mode, sort of like if you take your shoes off and you put your bare feet on grass or on dirt, there is an electrical charge that will, like a certain wattage or voltage, that will go through you. That is what our bodies were designed to experience, to feel grounded, to feel centered, to feel balanced and whole. And so when the practitioner is putting their hands on different energy centers, they are reinforming, almost like reprogramming, reintroducing, teaching those parts to remember what it feels like to be balanced and whole. And
Do you
from
think
that state, they can do things. What? Yep.
do you think anyone can deliver Reiki? Because the person that I did it with, she said she was touching me, and she said she could see certain colors when she touched my head, and I can't remember all the different chakras, etc. But she said she could see things very much like you've had your premonitions or visions that you see as well. Do you think that everyone can do Reiki and deliver Reiki, or is it you need to be quite intuitive and have certain, I don't have a better word than powers, before you do it, or can everyone learn to deliver it?
A lot of times people, well, I think a lot of these things don't have to be about powers at all. It's a skill that can be learned, just like learning how to manage money, learning how to sense energy or deliver, learning how to be a massage therapist. It's a skill that can be learned. The thing that separates one person from another, though, is partially beliefs. If the practitioner is stuck in their brain and they're focused on negative things and they're putting their hands on you, what do you think is transferring to you? All their negativity, all their negative emotions. And so there are certain people that if they have a judgment against a gender or a race or a religion and somebody comes in like, I don't want to work on that person, you know what I mean? They have to sort of get out of their ego, get out of their own way, out of their own belief systems and judgments, and go, I am willing to be a channel of the life force energy and trust that whether I sense it or not, when I put my hands on this person and I just allow us both to be in this beautiful, floaty, happy place of neutral or better, like the practitioner basically has to regulate themselves first, get themselves to calm down, be in that lovely, floaty, alpha theta meditative state. When they put their hands on that person in those different areas, that's what really allows the magic to happen. But if they're stuck in their head thinking about their toxic relationship or checkbooks and burgers and whatever, and they're putting their hands on you, they may be transferring information into your system that is not ideal for you. So it's not about being psychic. It's about being able to just be open and to be a clean vessel for that energy to flow through. Like, wipe your mind out of all your own personal and professional problems for a little bit and just sit there and be willing to allow love and joy and radiance to come through. Because even with HeartMath, one of the techniques called heart lock-in is if you can breathe into your heart that neutral or better energy like gratitude or appreciation and radiate that throughout your body, you can intentionally radiate to somebody else. It's the same as Reiki. Now, you don't force it. You're not like, this has to go into this area and do what I want it to do, because that's not Reiki. You're not trying to force your will or the outcome. But if you can just relax and allow energy to flow through you in a very relaxed meditative state and trust that the right thing will happen without you trying to force your will for a particular outcome, then I believe anybody can do Reiki.
How do you feel after Reiki? After you've delivered a session, do you find it invigorating or do you find it tiring?
If a person is truly doing Reiki, meaning they're allowing the universal life force energy to go through you, you feel energized, you feel, or at least peaceful and calm. If you are forcing your will, you are giving them your energy, that's not Reiki. Or if you've somehow absorbed their energy, like there's a backflow of their negativity into you, that's also not Reiki. And so that's where there's a skill that needs to be learned about sort of getting out of the way. When you try to force your will and you're trying to put all this energy into them, that's not it. You're going to feel relaxed and floaty just like the other person if you're actually truly doing Reiki.
The whole interview has been fascinating. Thank you so much. I've got the quick fire round to go, and then I will let you get on with the rest of your day. But firstly, just thank you. So many bits and pieces in here that chime with the other things that I'm reading in other cultures and other, as I say, I particularly like to bring things back to the ancient Greek wisdom and philosophies, and just see how that pairs with other things. What book, blog, or podcast would you give someone if you wanted them to live a good life?
Wow. Well, three podcasts that stand out for me that are not mine. Mel Robbins is one. Jay Shetty is another. Impact Theory is another one. Or I think is it Evan Carmichael? I think he's the fourth one. As far as like books, I love anything by Dr. Joe Dispenza. The Placebo Effect, Becoming Supernatural, or You Are the Placebo. Anything that's going to teach you how to manage your mind and body, like master your mind and body, I think are amazing. Let's see. Biography of a autobiography of a yogi? I think that's what it is another one. Oh my gosh. Anything by Neville Goddard or Florence Scovel Shinn. Those guys really teach you how to reprogram your mindset to manifest in ways, and they are the front runners. Like Florence Scovel Shinn was probably in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and Neville Goddard, same thing. It was like the 40s, 50s, or Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. When you learn how to change your mindset, the outer world will change, and those guys knew the secret. And the people that are coming now later, even Dr. Joe Dispenza and some of these others, are coming on the backs of these people who were the original pioneers in this work.
So if you had to get someone interested in this field, which one is most accessible in 2024? What would be your go-to to say, just start with this one, and this will tell you 80-90% of it? It's a tricky question.
Oh geez. Dr. Joe Dispenza, You Are the Placebo.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
What's your biggest light bulb moment where you've learned something about yourself, where the pennies dropped on something?
I think it was after doing HeartMath, when I asked myself the question, what was my role in every terrible thing that ever happened to me?
That's such a tough question, isn't it?
That the whole world opened up, like all of the illusions fell away, all of the confusion was gone. All of the confusion was gone. And then my second question was for myself was, who do I want to become, and what do I need to start and stop doing to become that person? And that so when you talk about identity shifting, I had asked myself what attributes I really respected and admired and wanted to become, and what habits or behaviors or mindsets I needed to stop, and what I needed to start becoming to have that lifestyle. That's your roadmap. I mean, it really is. What do you want? Why? It has to be strong enough to overcome all of your resistance and all of your limiting beliefs. And then what do you have to start and stop doing to become that person? It's not that hard, but you just have to be willing to be uncomfortable at first.
What's your best and worst habits?
I think in the past, the worst habit would be something that I would say to myself, or say out loud to others. When you talk about your problems with other people, or when somebody says, what's going on with you? And you're like, well, blah, blah, blah. And you discuss your problems, you reinforce them. And it's so, habitual for people to collude with that, because there's something called constructive interference and destructive interference. Constructive interference is when you have a mastermind, a group of people, 2 or more, that have a shared goal of doing something amazing. Destructive because the 2 or more energies magnify it. But when you talk about your problems and you discuss them, or even gossiping, you have destructive interference where you're magnifying that. You have a lot of minds thinking and reinforcing the negative. So I think the worst would be in the past, what I would like just discuss with my parents or my friends, or getting caught up in these long conversations that might be complaining or gossip or whatever. So that's something I learned in the past. Now my body tells me immediately I will feel dysregulated very quickly, and I have to change the subject and just go, focus on solutions and best case scenarios. Best habits, HeartMath. But I think right now it's what I love for myself is I go running. I run 5K every day, and I spend 45 minutes blessing myself and my life and my timelines. And I am just infused with joy, and I'm blessing anybody and everybody in existence when I'm doing this. I'm sort of actually cleaning out my chakras while I'm running. and I'm just infusing anybody and everything that ever lived, basically. And I start my day feeling absolutely amazing. And then I might take a 15-minute cold plunge in the, but basically it's really just, reinforcing to myself how good I am, how good life is, and just making a habit of blessing myself and everybody rather than cursing myself and everybody.
So it's a gratitude run. You've invented the gratitude run.
It's yeah. And so I'm saying this stuff over and over and over to myself, and then throughout the day, if I feel slightly dysregulated, I go into my automatic habit, because whatever you do with enough emotional intensity and repetition becomes your thing. So I'm just reprogramming my subconscious mind so that my new default mode is a positive one rather than the negative one I used to have.
There's a really nice habit or tactic that I heard, and I try and do it from time to time. I don't do it, certainly don't do it every day as prescribed. But as you're walking down the street, you pick two people at random and you just sort of wish good things for that person. You hope that person's happy. You hope that person's loved. You hope that person's content. And I don't know what it does, but the way you're nodding, it sounds like something that rule of reciprocity, whatever, that you're just putting good things out there. You wish good things for other people, and you just pick two people at random. And when I think to do it in a crowd, and I hate crowds, it is quite a nice thing to do, just to make yourself feel a little bit better. But then
Well,
is
if
it
you
selfish because you're making yourself feel better?
Well, here's the thing is you are the first person in the line to receive. So if you say something negative about somebody, you just poisoned yourself. If you say
Mm,
something positive about somebody, you just blessed yourself, because you feel it and think it here first.
mm, absolutely.
And so the more you get used to doing things that it's a positive reinforcement, even if you don't like it, it doesn't mean that you're lying. What it is you're reprogramming yourself to have a different experience of that thing. So don't reframe it as like, oh, I'm lying when I say this. This is not false positivity. You are deliberately making yourself feel positive about it, not saying a positive word but feeling the opposite. That's false positivity. But if you're going, I genuinely love myself. I genuinely love my finances. I love all the abundance that's flowing to me all day, every day, and I'm blessing all people, all things, whatever it is. I have this long thing that I say, but I'm feeling infused with euphoria. And sometimes, like I said, I'm waving my hands, and people on the trail think I'm waving at them. And they're like, "Hi," and so I'm like, "Okay, I'll roll with this." Hi. Bless you, and so I say, have a good day to everybody I meet, even their dogs and whatever are on the trails with me. So yeah.
Brilliant. What keeps you up at night?
Finding the ways to to have the most impact, to have the most positive impact, and to not allow myself to be influenced by the environment, no matter how convincing it is, because truth, none of the stuff that we hear is out there that's going on in the world is necessarily truth. It's very convincing. And so the body believes that this is all that is possible or capable. But as we're finding through quantum physics, anything is possible. You just have to do it with enough intensity and repetition that it becomes a thing, like law of accumulation. So even if you're not getting instant results in that moment, you do it often enough, it will become the new normal. And so I think for me, if I'm up at night, it's like, what can I do now? What can I do today to have the most impact in a positive way to uplift myself and humanity, and to not listen? Because, sometimes visiting family or friends, they have so much to say about politics, especially in my country, all the stuff going on with our
Hmm.
presidential elections, and to just, do this, you know what I mean? To not listen to and be impacted by it and go, what's my next step? How can I help as many people as I can for as long as I can?
Mm. Of all the skills that you've developed as an adult, which one do you think is the most impactful and has helped you to live a good life?
When you quiet the mind, when you can go into this place of relaxation, it's basically physiology first. When you go into the mind and first of all strengthening the body and just allowing your mind to relax, and then asking for solutions. I think it is a skill to have a positive mindset, an actual good attitude about yourself and about life. And so it's basically training myself towards inner mastery, I think, is this skill. But it's about looking for solutions, because the people that have the life they want, they're focused on solutions and what they can do to make that happen. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think, and that is
Yeah.
a skill set that a person has to learn to have a better mindset, a healthy mindset.
I've heard it likened to skiing. If you're going down the ski slope and all you're thinking about is the trees to avoid, you're going to go into the trees. If you think about the path, you find the path, and it's where your focus is, and that just takes you on your journey.
Yeah, because a lot of people, they have the monkey mind, the squirrel brain, and then when they get frustrated, they give up. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to redirect until this horse goes where I want it to go. You know, I'm like, I'm just determined. And that was one of the things that when I was sick, I had to focus on. I had a 1% chance of survival. In fact, I had it. If I didn't do what I did to have the surgery, I wouldn't have survived. But I didn't give up. I was so focused on what I would be doing when I lived and how happy I would be doing it. I gave myself 30 seconds to cry in the hospital bathroom after every rejection. I said, okay, girl, let's do this. Who's next? What's next? Most people, if they don't get what they want immediately, they give up, or they give up before they finish. The people that are successful, I don't care if they're athletes, musicians, whatever, they're doing hard work for long periods of time to become adept. So it looks easy, but they're willing to put in the effort or whatever it is to truly be unwaveringly committed and faithful to the vision of themselves and their life that they want, instead of cheating on their vision with fear, doubt, and skepticism.
Wow. It's powerful stuff. Who in your life right now should we talk to next if we want to live a good life? Who's been
Bruce
your
Cryer.
greatest mentor? Sorry?
Oh, well, one of my greatest mentors is passed. He died a few years ago. He's the one that taught me the Lakota songs, ceremonies, and dances. But Bruce Cryer, I love that man. He's one of the original founding directors of HeartMath. And HeartMath is part of the foundation of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. Those guys are good friends. But Bruce Cryer, I've interviewed him twice, and I'm going to interview him again in a couple weeks. He's got a program out called Renaissance Human, in which he is teaching people how to change their identity, how to change their life. And it's really is these I mean, people have all their formulas out there, but this guy's work is cutting edge. He's, again, part of that group, HeartMath Institute, that really put the awareness that the heart is not just a pump on the map. That group really was what created heart and brain coherence, and so that people can do this to themselves without having to go to a Reiki practitioner or a therapist or whatever. When you teach people how to change their physiological response to stress and activate their inner intuition to give them answers or solutions in some way, you have got you control your life. And so he gave people a tool that empowered them, and he's still creating new things right now that teach people how to basically heal and transform their life.
Wow. Oh, Ashley, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Is there anything left that you'd like to leave the listeners with?
I just wanted to, let people know that if they don't like their lives or their health or their situations, there are other opportunities out there, that this is not the best that they can do or the best that they deserve, no matter what somebody did or did not say or do to them, or what they did or did not say or do to themselves. And to just go, okay, if I want a different life, I am worth it. And to seek somebody that can help guide them onto the path of those identity shifts, because it's often we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to do it ourselves. But if you have a mentor that can collude with you in your success and help you stay accountable in very positive and uplifting, exciting, meaningful ways, you can change. And it does not have to take 20 years to do it. It can be a lot faster than you think when you learn how to just, change those frequencies for yourself.
Brilliant. Ashley, thank you again so much. We've slated social media and the rest of it quite a lot, but if people did want to follow you and seek you out, where is the best place to find you? I'll put all the links in the description below, but where's the best place to find you?
So I'm on Facebook, Ashley Brothers in Bend, Oregon, or Institute of Conscious Evolution in Bend, Oregon, both on Facebook. I also have my website, bonesoftheearth.org. That's bones with an S, bonesoftheearth.org. It has also my podcast on there, not Gnostic TV. You can find my podcast called Soul Deep for free on Gnostic TV. There's a lot of episodes of people, including Bruce Cryer and several others, that I interview about their methods, their beliefs, their philosophies, or techniques that help people heal and transform their life.
Ashley, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Just before you disappear, please do give it a like and subscribe on the way out, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.